the corner of your eye, huddled in the darkest shadows of imagination, it waits. Now is the time to face the fear. Welcome to Horror Lasagna. Embrace the trepidation.
So, Todd. All right. So, as of this episode, we have feed streams going. We have all the episodes except this one, and we might have a bonus since everybody's been asking for that bonus episode of
That's
the
right.
remakes. Yeah, we like to please our audience. So,
Well, this is episode 10, and I think no matter how many seasons we go, this one's going to be unique because this one is a horror comedy television series.
yes.
This is Todd and the Book of Pure Evil.
Which, just from the name of it, I would have watched it. You know, because my movie and horror sensibilities kind of were defined at age 12 and they have not evolved. So
Then this is the show for you.
it was perfect.
Yeah. It's a Canadian television series from September of 2010, and it's based on an 18-minute short from with the same name.
Which I could not find. We couldn't really. There was one place that said you could watch it online, but it uses Flash, and everybody has stopped using Flash, so I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, it's that was actually funded through a Canadian film grant.
We've watched a lot of those this season.
Yes, so that for any of you Canadians listening, this is the result of your hard tax dollars at work.
I bet they're proud.
They should be. The series ran for 2 seasons, and then was dropped. And like any good serial horror comedy show, it leaves you on a cliffhanger at the end of every season. And so there were enough fans clamoring to see how the whole series ended that they started an Indiegogo campaign. And it helped fund an animated feature called Todd, the Book of Pure Evil, The End of the End, that would wrap up the story.
Right, which I think I think somewhere I got a copy of to get to you, so we can watch that too.
Yeah.
And second season, it's been on Shudder, but for whatever reason, the Shudder subscription through Amazon had it available, and now it's not. So I don't know if they took it off Shudder itself or if it's just Amazon subscription. So hopefully we'll get to watch the very important second season. I mean, my life will not be complete.
It's it's one of those kind of shows that it does kind of suck you in. You'll be sitting there, and the episodes are only about 22 minutes long. And so you'll be watching it. The next thing you know, you'll have watched 6 of them, and you'll be like,
Right.
what in the world just happened?
Right.
The original short was made by 2 guys named Craig David Wallace and Max Reed. Max Reed kind of disappears from the picture once it goes on to become a mainstream show. You don't find
Mainstream is used very loosely.
yes, mainstream in Canada on a basic cable slot show. Craig David Wallace, however, stayed with it. So he went on to be involved with every episode from here on out. Now, some of them he was just like executive producer. He didn't direct or he didn't write it, but he was still involved with everything all the way up till the conclusion of the show.
The gory end.
Yes, whatever that is, because
We haven't seen
neither
it
of
yet.
us have seen it. Craig David Wallace has done 21 total titles as a director, including Slasher, which is kind of an obscure TV series, and Beaverton. also, I imagine Canadian obscure television series, but I at least heard of the name, so I made note of that one.
Yeah, slasher sounds familiar, actually.
Um, he hooked up with a guy named Charles Picho, um, who did a lot of writing in this series, and a guy named Anthony Leo, who produced 23 Canadian titles as well, to bring the show to television. So um, that's like the new group for Todd and the Book of Pure Evil was Craig David Wallace, Charles Picho, and Anthony Leo. Wallace directed episodes. To the best of my knowledge, Picho and Leo wrote some, but they didn't direct any. But Wallace directed episodes, as well as they had multiple directors. James Genn, who did episodes of Mary Kills People, The Killjoys, Charmed, The Good Doctor, and the Turner and Hooch television series,
Oh, okay.
which
I've
I'm sure
actually
you
seen a
you
few.
have. All right.
Gina likes that show. I've watched Charmed back in the day. I've watched a few episodes of Good Doctor. So yeah.
He also had James Dunnison, who directed some. He did Blood Ties and some other titles. David Winning did some. He directed some Friday the 13th television
I
series
remember that. That's not the one we
episodes.
went to school with, is it?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
no.
okay.
He also did some Are You Afraid of the Dark, some
Hmm.
Goosebumps. Um, he's like the big star director. He also worked on Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, some Sweet Valley High, Stargate Atlantis,
Oh, wow.
Blood Ties, and oh my God, so many Christmas romance flicks this guy directed.
Yeah,
So
well, they come out with like 500 new ones every year of those.
yeah, so somebody's got to do it,
Right. Hey, it's a good
and
job.
apparently David Winning is the guy to do it. So
Well, okay.
those are the guys who did a lot of the directing once the show became a regular series. Um, the show stars a character named Todd, oddly enough. Um,
And a book that's pure evil.
that's
Of pure
true.
evil.
That's right. Todd is played by a guy named Alex House. Alex House has been in 47 different things, and of the giant list of 47 different things, aside from Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, the only ones I recognized were Degrassi Junior High,
Oh,
and he was a voice on Jane and the Dragon, which I don't know if your kids ever watched that in the
no.
day, but
No.
it was a PBS animated CGI animated show.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Alex House plays Todd. Maggie Castle plays his love interest, Jenny. She was also in about 48 titles, including some episodes of Goosebumps and in a movie called The Woods. Have you seen The Woods?
The Woods. It looks familiar, but I haven't seen it. I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
familiar.
It's kind of one of those teen horror witches living out in some private school, blah blah
Like they
blah
do.
kind of deal. Yeah, like they do. Bill Turnbill plays Curtis. Um, Todd's best friend, and he has been in Goosebumps, Degrassi: The Next Generation. He had a part in The Boys, um, and 26 other titles. So, all these guys are working, which
Yeah.
is nice to see. Um, Melanie Leishman plays Hannah. She's been in 26 titles. Um, some of them are kind of Skinamax looking kind of titles, which I
Oh,
found kind of
interesting.
interesting since she plays the super buttoned up, quiet individual in the show.
Nerd, yeah.
But she was also in one of my favorite movies, Stage Fright.
Okay.
Um, and if you haven't seen Stage Fright, you have to take a look at that. It is a horror comedy musical, full length major motion picture.
Which we love.
Yes. So she's in that. There are um, three, I don't know what to call them, post grads
Yeah.
who like to hang out in the parking lot of the school.
Yeah. They're an interesting group for the whole series. It's like they're obviously directing Todd to something, but we really didn't know what. They just like these
Right.
druggies hanging out that, well, we graduated, but we can't like leave high school because that was the peak of our lives. So we're going to hang out and smoke in the parking lot until Todd needs us.
As a story element, they are the Greek Furies. They are
Yes.
there to see that the will of the universe is carried out.
Yeah, they direct Todd and they enjoy doing it because it's almost sadistic.
Yes, it's true. There's a guy named Brody, played by Dan Petronjevic. Um, a guy named Eddie, played by Norman Young, and I love Eddie because at the end of every time he's talking to Todd, he always adds the word loser, which is just a really nice touch. He actually was in Resident Evil Afterlife,
Oh, okay.
so
As
he's
a
got
zombie?
I don't know what role he had, but he was in it. It's on his
Zombie number
CV.
72.
And then Stephen Arbuckle plays Rob. He's the guy with the do-rag. He was also in Degrassi: The Next Generation, and he also played in some episodes of Blue Bloods. And he was the original Todd in the short
Ah.
Todd in the Book of Pure Evil. So that's kind of a cool carryover.
Yeah, and it is cool. You're right that I mean a lot of the stuff we've uh, watched for the season, we don't know a lot of these people. We haven't. There hasn't been a whole lot that they've done necessarily. Some of these people is like done two things, or it's just the friends. You know, well, I'm directing it. Give me some money, and I'll let you be in it. So
Yeah,
this is, I mean, it's you might say legit. You know, a TV show, and you know, they got people to do it, writers and different directors, and all sorts of stuff. So I almost feel like it's out of our range. Like it's too good for us. I say that with my tongue in my cheek a little bit there.
yeah. If the three bros were the Fates or the Ironies, the Janitor is the Oracle. He is the one who offers sage advice to Todd.
And it's so ironic because it's Jason Mewes. I mean, I
That's
about
exactly right.
died when I saw him. I'm like, wow. To me, the quality just went up, which is not saying necessarily a whole lot because it's Jason Mewes. But you know, you joke about Tom Cruise. Oh, look, Tom Cruise is playing a Tom Cruise character. It's like Jason Mewes has never played a different character. Every movie, everything I've ever
That's
seen
right.
him in, he's the exact same character. But he's Yoda in this one, and it's
He is.
hilarious.
Yes. Jimmy the Janitor is played by Jason Mewes. For those of you who that doesn't automatically click for you, he's been in 107 titles. He is the big star of this show. He is Jay of Jay and Silent Bob.
Right.
He's
Which,
been in
uh,
Clerks,
yeah.
Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Scream 3. I mean, this guy has been all over the place. If you need somebody who smokes a lot of weed, you call Jason Mewes.
Which, right there, knowing Muse was in it and his connection to Kevin Smith and how juvenile Kevin Smith could be in a good way. You know, he definitely enjoys the I'm still 12, let's play superheroes type of thinking. That sums this up. I mean, Jason Mewes fit perfectly into this. They didn't try to say, "Oh my gosh, we've got some money on a TV show. Let's make this more professional and mature." No, there's no maturity in this whatsoever. It is literally if you got a bunch of 12-year-olds and gave them money and said, "We will make whatever movie you want. We'll do whatever you want." That's what happened. A bunch of 12-year-olds won the lottery and started directing people in a TV show.
Yes, and for all of those guys I mentioned who direct the show, if you're listening to this, we're not saying you're 12 years old.
No, but I mean, that's exactly when we were 12. This is exactly the stories we would have come up with, and we probably would have had them do the same everything that they did. But the over the top, the puerile, juvenilistic thoughts and everything.
But it would have been on Betamax.
Probably because Ron would have been helping and he would have
Yeah,
insisted.
yeah. Um, so oddly enough, just to let you know where their mindset were, Jimmy the Janitor's role was written specifically for Jason Mewes.
Oh, perfect.
And so I kind of wonder what would have happened if they would have been like, "Hey, would you be in our show? We wrote this role specific," and he would have said no. I mean, I really wonder what they would have done.
Well, I mean, I love Jason Mewes and I love watching his stuff, but it's not like people are clamoring to get him in things. So,
True.
and honestly, just the character he plays, I'm sure he's like, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. I mean, it's just he seems to have that real life attitude.
Not a whole big jump for him to
No,
fill in that role.
yeah, it was,
Yeah.
and actually, it's one of the more mature roles he's played, I think.
It's true. He's like this figure people look up to.
Yeah,
Um, Chris Levins plays the guidance counselor, and that is
Atticus.
what I am.
His speech is so good when he talks.
Yes. He's got one of those faces that you look at and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I know this guy from something." And you don't. He's been in 17 different titles, including RoboCop, the TV series,
Oh, jeez.
and La Femme Nikita, the TV series. So I've never seen this guy in anything else, but he just looks like somebody. You're like,
Right.
I know this guy from something.
Except for Muse, I think Atticus was my favorite character. He just, I mean, he's like he never grew up. He doesn't know how to handle anybody. He's awkward. He wants to fit in, but his father is the like king of the cultists in the show, and he feels like
Yes.
his dad never loved him enough, and he's not good at his job. He's the worst guidance counselor in the world, and
Yes.
and he gets so excited when he gets to be a part of the gang.
Yeah.
And it just he cracked me up every time he was on screen.
He was great. Leave it in the past, Atticus.
Yeah.
He um he shows probably the widest range of growth of character
Wow, that's saying a lot.
I know of anybody else in the series. Um, so just so you're aware, this isn't just Steve and I being big fans of childish humor. This show was nominated for 25 different awards, and
Wow.
it won 14 of those.
So I can say I like award-winning TV shows.
You can. And of all of the nominations, they aren't all Canadian.
Wow.
So like
They're not all just the local high school awarding them favorite Friday night movie.
the Chicago International Film Festival, they won 2 awards there.
Wow.
Um, the Leo Awards, New York festivals, World Fest Houston. I mean,
Wow.
now of course they also won stuff from the Yorkton Film Festival and Canadian Cinema Editors Awards and Canadian Comedy Awards. But it was interesting to me that they won. It's such a decorated show.
Yeah, it's like the Battery. All the awards the Battery won, but a lot of people still don't know anything about it.
Right. And I don't know that there's a whole lot of people out there walking around talking about Todd and the Book of Pure Evil either, besides us. But
True. I mean, it's definitely not an everybody show. You know, there's a lot of people that would not enjoy it, would not appreciate it, would think it's just stupid and that. But if you're in that niche that enjoys the 12-year-old high school humor, it's perfect.
yeah, if you watched Evil Dead 3 and chuckled along with it,
Right.
this might hit for you. Um, or if you watched maybe not Shaun of the Dead, but Hot Fuzz, and you were
Yeah.
like,
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, this is like a television series based off of that kind of thing.
Right. It at times it reminded me of like Porky's.
Yeah, that's a really good Porky's with monsters.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Sometimes really bad monsters, but yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so a couple interesting facts. Jason Mewes, we're all pretty familiar with, him and his personal style. In contrast, Alex House, who played Todd, personally, he doesn't smoke or drink, which is really ironic because almost every episode has a scene of him smoking weed in it,
Him and
in
Curtis.
there somewhere. Him and Curtis smoking a lot of weed.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, on the X Files, the Smoking Man, he didn't smoke.
that is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, Atticus Finch, the way he dressed was actually based on how Craig David Wallace dresses. So they actually looked at the guy who was creating the show and directing the episodes and said, "You know what? You dress a little funny. I
You
think I'm
dress
going to use that."
like a really bad guidance counselor.
Yeah. There are 13 episodes per season for the 2 seasons that were there. Uh, and you like this kind of thing. It was produced twice. It was produced with a profanity version and with a clean version.
Really?
Depending on where it was going to be played, they would have the option to plug in either one.
Okay.
Ours was, and which begs a huge question because some of the episodes, it's not the words, it's the visuals
Yeah.
that are questionable.
And
So,
again, it's 12-year-old thinking. It every bit of it. They're making sexual references. They're making jokes that are 12-year-old locker humor type jokes. I mean, heck, in 2020, the whole crew and everything probably would have been hunted down for putting something like this out.
yeah, I was thinking that if you are an easily triggered individual, some of these episodes are not for you.
No, and it's not because they're so realistic. It's just, again, if you listen to a bunch of 12-year-old boys sitting around talking
Yep.
and joking, this is they just recorded that and turned it into episodes.
Yeah, to kind of borrow a phrase that was used a while ago, this isn't necessarily locker room talk. This is fourth graders on the playground talk.
Yeah, there you go. Trying to be the kids in the locker room.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
very
and
much so.
there's a really great, well, we'll get to it in a second, but there's this really great indicator in episode 2 that like points to how the whole thing is like fourth graders on a playground. But I think the only other note that I had before we actually get into the episodes themselves is that this did release theatrically. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There was a theatrical release in Canada for the animated film.
Okay.
Um, I don't have stats on how well it did fiscally or anything like that, but um, so the show, it's one of those kind of things, and I can just see this happening where you're watching a show and you really love it and it gets canceled, and then you find out later that there's going to be like a full-length major motion picture made of it, and you're like, yeah, and then it doesn't air on TV, and you're like, crap, now I got to pay to go watch it. So, yeah, I can't wait to see that whenever we track it down.
Yeah, I think I've got it. I tracked it down, so we'll get a chance to watch it. I gotta get season 2 somewhere for us.
I'm telling you, I did mine through the library. These were both library finds.
Then
So
that may be where to go.
yeah,
Nice.
um, and I got the first season, and I was like, yeah, okay, what the heck? We'll take a look. This looks kind of funny. And then I was like, I can't wait for the second season to get here. So, um, the series starts. Episode 1 has a title called Todd the Metal God.
I mean, if you watch the first 10 minutes and you don't get what this series is going to be like, then you need to wake up.
Yeah. This one was directed by James Dennison. He was the one who had done some work on Blood Ties. And the show opens with Todd fantasizing about being a massive speed metal guitar hero.
Right.
And Jenny's in front of him and she's swooning all about him and like she throws her panties up on the stage.
Which I don't remember anyone ever doing that to you, so you weren't doing it right. You needed
No,
more smoke.
I was no speed metal god. That was
Yeah.
not in my.
So before we go, did you find out who actually did the guitar playing? Because I looked and could not find that. Because the duel that comes up, I was like, wow, who's really playing?
I It's so funny to me that you tried to track that down. Uh, I have no idea.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even bother to look at the credits. I guess I could have tried that. That might have been it.
I was gonna say, typically when I was looking these up, I would check out each individual episode and it would have this song list. Let me look. I didn't bother paying that much attention to it, but
Wow.
yeah, I don't know who it was. We'll have to really dig deep to find that out. But
Yeah. So maybe if we ever meet Jason Mewes, we'll ask him. Maybe he knows.
there you go.
And so this opening sequence, I'm watching it, and I am like, okay, this has got to be a dream sequence, and it definitely was. But what really clued me in at first, I'm like, wait a second, there's a guitarist and a drummer. Where's the rest of the band? And wait a second, that drummer only has one arm.
Well, he's got prosthetic.
True, but I mean, he's basically playing with one arm.
Hey, it was good enough for Def Leppard.
That's right. I knew you were going to say that.
um, the it's funny because the White Stripes made it work.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, it is just Todd and Curtis. It turns out that Todd is having this fantasy while he is on stage trying to get a spot on the talent show for the school talent show, and while he's playing, he's not really good,
Oh my
really.
God. It is like the worst. And Curtis has no rhythm. He's just banging the drums. It was great. I loved it.
Curtis is banging the drums so passionately
Yeah.
that his prosthetic arm flies off and lands on the judge's table.
Right.
The crowd then gets into it, just like making fun of him,
Including
and
the gym teacher.
including the gym teacher. Yes, the gym teacher in this film, she doesn't have a lot of parts, but when she does, she's brutal.
Oh,
She um so Todd gets basically laughed off the stage, and it's not going well for him, obviously. Curtis is one of those kind of guys who, like, when the crowd is chanting and making fun of them, Curtis is smiling and he's playing the drums along with them. So Todd goes out and he goes out to the parking lot, yeah, to speak to the three bros,
yeah.
and they're out there, and they mention the Book of Pure Evil, and Todd is walking through the school and bumps into Jenny, who is dating this super cool quarterback guitar frontman for like the big band in the school. Todd's band's name was what was the Barbarian Apocalypse,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting.
And it's
Uh,
hand lettered on the drum.
yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
poorly.
And so he bumps into Jenny in the hall as she drops this book and a photograph, and it's a black and white photograph of hands clutching this book that has like the devil horn symbol on it, and it's like obviously stitched together with skins of some
Right.
kind.
They just
Um,
needed Bruce Campbell in this.
yeah, it is definitely Evil Dead Necronomicon feel about it.
Yeah.
So he's helping her pick her stuff up, and then her boyfriend comes by, and he's like, "Get out of here! You're not even in. You didn't even make the cut." And Todd looks over, and he didn't make the cut to the
He's the only
talent
one.
show. Yeah, the only person.
And that's throughout the whole series, every episode, everything they do. Essentially, it takes some of the worst parts of high school and blows them up to magnify them and goes over the top with even that much. Like every little thing in high school, the worst teachers, the worst kids, the worst
Guidance counselor.
yeah, the worst conflicts between different groups and stuff. Every bit, it's like they took everything from high school, turned it into pieces of episodes, and put it over the top all the way through. That covers basically the whole season. There we go. Boom.
Yeah. Okay. It's been nice talking to you,
Yeah.
Steve.
All right. Great. No.
Yeah. You're very much right. Todd is walking down the hall and looks in a trophy case, and sitting in the trophy case is the Book of Pure Evil.
Which, wow, I don't know where it is. We can't find it. Look for it. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. And that while that might sound like an odd coincidence, it turns out it's not. You will find out in later episodes that like the entire town is built around devil worship. So
Yeah. And I noticed that. I mean, one of the first comments I have written down when they were all cheering and judging the symbol on the shirts for the high school, I'm like, wow, that looks a lot like they're saying, hey, Sam Hain, we love you. I
yes,
mean, it just, and we find out later there's even more to that. But I mean, it's like, come on, look at the school symbol. It's uh, everything about it.
this school is called Crowley High after
Yeah.
Aleister Crowley. So to
It,
get the
it, if you like the high school stuff with Buffy, this is like the absurd version of it. I
yeah,
mean, they're just so non blasé about, oh, look, someone else died. Oh, look, somebody did this. Well, at least the school's still here. Let's move on.
hand me my blood mop.
Yeah, blood mop. That was, oh my God, Jason Mewes was so perfect. Well, I better get my blood mop.
Yep. And so he sees the book is in this case, and I'm like, maybe this is going to be the whole thing of the episode. He's going to try and figure out how to get out of this case. No, he sees the janitor walking down the hall, and he's like, "Hey, Jimmy, can you open this for me?" And Jimmy's like, "What do you got?" And he's like, "A buck 57 and my lucky condom." And he's like, "How old's the condom?" And he's like, 2 years old. He's like, "I'll take the money." And then he opens the case for him. Book got. There you go.
Yeah, not a big long. Now that's the other thing about the episodes. They're only 22 minutes, which is like a cartoon length. Um, but don't expect big detailed plots. It follows a very much template. Hey guys, how you doing? Oh look, there's the bad thing of the week. Okay, here's how we're going to defeat it. Oh look, we defeated it. Move on. I mean, that's essentially the episode every time.
They even note that and make fun of it in later episodes. They're like, okay, oh, so and so's got the book because they had something going bad in their life, and obviously they're going to end up with the book that's going to make it better, but actually have a twist
Makes
and be
it
ruined for everybody.
right.
So Todd takes the book home and he opens it up, and it is like the devil horn sign is not just like etched or painted or drawn on the cover. It's like physically a hand that's stitched to the cover of making devil horn signs. So he reads out some ridiculous, stupid Latin, and the binding on the book like flashes red. Um, and the next thing we see is he walks up to Jenny's boyfriend and he's like, he calls him a douche,
Yeah.
and then takes off his fingerless leather gloves and slaps him in the face and challenges him to a guitar duel in the cafeteria over lunch, which, of course, like you do in high school.
Because there's always amps sitting there.
Yes. So the guy agrees, and they get there, and before Todd starts, he informs the individual that he's going to play so well that the guy is going to end up bleeding out his butthole.
Which, again, if you're 12,
Yes. So there's this kind of dueling banjos thing happening between the guitars, and the quarterback is playing reasonably well, and Todd is playing so much better than that.
like every dueling instrument scene you've ever seen.
Yes. By the end of the scene, Todd has played just tremendously, and the guy is lying on the ground asking Jenny to help him because he's bleeding out of his butthole.
After all his fingers like just
Yeah, they
spontaneously
break.
snap.
Yeah. Um, Curtis goes up to Todd afterwards and he's like, dude, that was awesome. And finds out that Todd has replaced Curtis and is basically just taken over the quarterback's band. So now
Right.
he's fronting the quarterback's band. They are the new Barbarian Apocalypse, and Curtis has no place.
Poor.
Yeah, poor Curtis. So it's the time for the actual show, and Atticus Finch is introducing the bands and introduces Barbarian Apocalypse, and Todd gets up there with his band and they start playing, and they actually sound pretty good. and everybody in the crowd is getting into it and thrashing and start to bleed from their eyes.
Yeah. First thing that happens to this group of high school kids.
Yes.
How was your 4 years in high school? Well, let me tell you.
Um, there's also this kind of mousy girl figure who shows up periodically throughout the episode. It's Hannah. She obviously has a crush on Todd, but she doesn't have much in the way of lines in the first episode.
Right.
But she's there in the background. So one of the things I knew you would love about this show is that so many of the effects are actual practical effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's like next to no CGI in this. Everything is puppeteering and red food coloring and corn syrup kind of thing.
And some are much better than others.
Yes. Um, and so like there's lots of shots while he's playing of just the floor and like blood just dripping onto the floor. Um, and so Jenny figures out what's going on. It's the book. She looks at his guitar because the book transformed into a guitar. So it still has like that skin wrapped look. It's
Yeah.
got the devil horns actually on the guitar itself.
Which is like the coolest looking guitar.
Oh yeah, sure. So she pulls the fire alarm and everyone runs away. And there's a showdown between her and Curtis and Todd. Um, they end up. Did they light it on fire in this one?
I don't. No, I don't think so.
No, they don't. But they do end up talking Todd out of using the book.
Right.
And so the guitar transforms back into a book and like spreads its book wings and like flies away kind of thing.
And this is where you got to laugh because there's so many bad story holes and everything in this show. You just have to overlook them. It's like really, it's it's going to fly away, so everyone just stands there and watches it. And
Yeah.
well, we might as well wait till the next horrible thing that happens. I mean, there's just so many things that if you're reading or looking at most modern shows, you're gonna be like, what the heck? And I know people that just would be like, oh, that's a story, and this, and they would get all upset about it. But you just suspend that and just go with the flow. It's just juvenile and enjoy it, and
Yeah.
you can have fun with it.
You'll like this show a lot better if you do that.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Also, it reminded me of at times is that video game Brutal Legend.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Um, so the book flies away. Jenny's like, "Oh, we've got to follow it. We've got to track the book down." And Todd's like, "Not my problem." Um, but then he figures out that if he does it because it means so much to Jenny, and it means so much to Jenny because the book is the last clue she has. Her father has disappeared, it turns
Right,
out, and it had something to do with the book. And so Todd figures out that if he helps her, he gets to hang out with her. And so he and Curtis and Jenny form this trio to go look for the book. And
right.
that's pretty much the end of the first episode, aside from the fact that Atticus Finch gets this mysterious phone call. Well, he makes a mysterious phone call and says something about the book is like it's active again.
Yeah,
And they leave it at that, so you know that the guidance counselor has something to do with the book. He knows about the book somehow.
right.
Um, and I made note Todd is one of the few people who uses the book and comes away relatively unscathed.
Yeah, good to note.
Yes. Almost everyone else who uses the book either ends up dead or horribly mutilated.
Right. And they just keep moving on, and there's been no investigation into this, and nobody has left.
Right. Um, episode 2 is called How to Make a Homunculus. And it was directed by James Genn. Um, James Genn was the one who did Mary Kills People, Killjoy's Charmed, The Good Doctor, The Turner and Hooch guy.
Okay.
He directed this one, and this one stars Hannah for the most part. Um, I think the show opens with her in science class, and
Right.
her science teacher is a complete douche.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. again, from the kid's perspective, this is what the teachers are like. And
Yes.
he says all the worst wrong things that should get him arrested, kicked out of teaching. And he's just like, everything is, again, over the top, stupid.
Yes. He obviously is having a relationship with these two cheerleaders. That's what they're relying on their grades for. So, and he's blowing off Hannah, who is all about actually doing science to honor her parents who are deceased.
And he like picks on her about that.
Yeah, he makes fun of her. They would be so disappointed with what you're doing science
Yeah,
wise. And legitimately so, because what apparently she was doing science wise was making a flying ship for guinea pigs.
yeah,
Because she has a guinea pig and he's like number 15, that's his name. And she puts him in the device and throws him out a third story window and it promptly plummets to the ground. And there's a little bit of CGI there. There's this little explosion
right,
mushroom cloud from the thing blowing up. And as she's throwing the body and the experiment away, she finds the Book of Pure Evil in the dumpster.
right. And this is in relation to the cheerleaders are making a baking soda volcano.
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah. Because of course it's science fair time. That's the only thing anyone ever does in science
yeah,
class. It's always just science fair. So uh, Todd and Jenny and Curtis are in the science class with Hannah, and they all get divided up into partners to do their science fair projects. And Curtis gets Jenny, much to Todd's dismay, and Todd ends up with Hannah. And we never do find out what Jenny and Curtis are going to do for their
yeah,
science fair project. It never gets mentioned again.
yeah, because it's
Um,
unimportant.
right.
It's a
And
whole let it go.
the project's completely unimportant to Todd because he's all about hanging out with Jenny and Curtis. And so Hannah's like, I've got an idea for this project. He's like, yeah, good, whatever. And he and Jenny and Curtis go off to do their own thing. Hannah, on the other hand, finds in the Book of Pure Evil the ability to make a homunculus, which, if you're not familiar with medieval alchemy magic lore, is a small creature that you could make that you would imbue with magical force and it would run around as your servant, basically. So she decides to cast this spell to make the homunculus. Todd is having a dream. And in the dream, he sees, like from the perspective of something really short, he sees the science teacher hanging out with the cheerleaders. They've just come back from some restaurant. They're still in their uniforms for
Yeah,
some reason. And he's trying to get them to make out together. And obviously, they're not drunk enough. And they're both saying
which is
he's
all things teachers should be doing with students.
yes. And they're saying, oh, he's too drunk. You know how he's like when he's like this. And so they leave. And when they leave, Todd, from the point of view of this small, lower thing, attacks the guy. And he's screaming and he says something about homunculus. And then Todd wakes up. It doesn't take a literary major to like see what actually happened. When you find out the next day the science teacher is dead, impaled in a very inappropriate place on top of a baking soda volcano.
And then it explodes too. So
Then it
yeah,
explodes too, yeah.
juvenile, yeah,
All
right
over
on
the
cheerleaders.
two cheerleaders, yes.
Yeah,
And they seem more upset by the fact that he ruined their volcano
right.
than anything else.
Which again, there's so many stereotypes in the show,
Yes.
except for our main characters. All the cheerleaders are selfish airheads, and
Yes.
all the teachers and adults are stupid and say the wrong things and don't care about teaching. Just every other person, every other kid is some stereotype because there's not enough time to develop other characters.
Right. Hannah tries to engage with Todd some more. He's ignoring her some more. He and Jenny and Curtis come to the conclusion this has something to do with the book. Big leap there. The next night, Todd goes to sleep, and he has that point of view dream. He's seeing through the homunculus's eyes. It is entering into Jenny's bedroom while she's asleep, and she wakes up just as it's about to attack her. She drives it away, and so they go back to the school the next day, and they're talking about it. And Hannah's standing there with this giant bird cage with a sheet over top of it. And they finally, after all this time, notice Hannah. And Todd's like, "What's in there?" And she's like, "It's our science project. It's a homunculus." And she takes it off, and it's this little rubbery, naked puppet thing with Todd's face.
Right.
It, of course, immediately gets free,
Of course.
grabs the Book of Pure Evil, and jumps into the air ducts.
Yeah, and again over the top. Curtis and Todd are running around the science room, basically destroying everything, and not even coming close to hitting the
Yes.
homunculus.
Yeah. So they come up with a ingenious plan to catch it. It seems to be look like Todd, but it's driven by Hannah's emotions, and it like attacked Jenny because Hannah has a thing for Todd, which they just flat out, call out right there in episode 2. So Todd's big plan is they tie Jenny to a chair, and she points out rightly, "Why did I have to be tied up?"
Yeah, and then he's basically ignoring her.
Yeah. And he's out with Hannah, and he's talking with Hannah, describing like the perfect date between him and Jenny. And this is what I mean by like fourth graders on the playground. He has really no concept of what like sex is, because he's like, "Oh, and we get all naked and we like squish our bodies together." Like, he has no idea what he's talking about, but it works. The homunculus shows up, and it goes diving at Jenny, and when it does, Curtis's prosthetic arm pops up from underneath the table and grabs it by its neck and squeezes it till its head pops.
Yeah, got to have a lot of exploding pus and gore throughout
Yes,
the whole series.
yes, and it's not even good pus and gore. It's like, raspberry jam.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
the book flies away. Uh, End of episode 2. Aside from there's a little acrimony between Jenny and Hannah because Hannah's jealous of Jenny. I mean, and so at some point in time, I think she calls Jenny a skank
yeah,
in there.
yeah.
The next episode is Rock and Roll Zombies Know Best. And this one was directed by their rock star, Dave Winning. Um, I looked, and the zombies, the actors who played the zombies, nobody famous, nobody you knew, not even from a musical, kind of background or anything like that. Um, but the 4 of them have now formed this group to hunt down the book.
So you've
And
got a little bit of Buffy, a little bit of Scooby Doo
yeah,
going on.
yeah. Todd is trying to figure out how to hook up with Jenny. It's not working really well, so he turns to Jimmy the janitor,
Of course.
and Jimmy tells him the best thing you can do is make her jealous, so sleep with one of her friends.
Sleep with all of her friends.
Yes. The downside of that is Jenny doesn't have a lot of friends. And so she does have this one friend who is like your stereotypical goth. And we see her in the opening shots of the show with some boy making out in her place, and she like lures him to the basement and then locks him in the basement, and you hear him screaming, and she says something like she's sorry as blood pours out from underneath the door,
Not
which
just a little blood. It pours. It's like a tidal wave of blood.
yeah, which if you think about it, the door's at the top of the stairs. How does that even work? But whatever. Just
There's
let
a
it
few
go.
plot holes.
Yeah. Yeah, no one's watching this for
And if
uh,
you are, it's a sad day.
yeah.
Just enjoy it.
So they're making lists of, what we know about the book, what we don't know about the book, and they're making a list of students, boys who have gone missing lately. And the
It's the
name,
Scooby Gang doing this. No authorities, no teachers. Oh, we're the only ones that have noticed in the past week, like 20 different boys have disappeared.
yeah,
Oh, but
um,
they left.
the names of all the boys on the list are all famous directors.
Oh, nice. I
One of
didn't
them's
notice.
named Craven, one of them's named Carpenter, one of them's named Romero, one of them's named Bava. So that's a
Nice.
cute little thing they added in there.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's great.
So Todd decides he's gonna, hook up with this goth chick to make Jenny jealous, and like he's trying to be Rico Suave, and he's like, "Hey," and she's like, "My place tonight, 7 o'clock," and he's like, "Oh, all right, great." And Jenny does actually seem to be slightly affected by that. The
Yeah.
relationship between the two of them, they've been shipped since episode 1, but it, it's a low simmer for sure. At least for one of the two. Todd shows up at the girl's house to find Curtis there eating corn chips. Curtis
Best
loves him
night
some
ever.
corn chips. Yes. Um, and Todd's confused by the whole thing, and the girl comes out and says something sexy, and Curtis is like, "We're gonna have an orgy. It's gonna be great." And Todd's not so sure about that because there's 2 guys and 1 girl, and how's that gonna work? And so he's about to leave, and Curtis talks him into staying. So then the girl traps them in the basement and locks the door, and 2 zombies with horrible British accents comes shambling out. Um, and instead of just like screaming, Todd just like defensively grabs a shovel and hits the one guy in the head with one and knocks the zombie down. And then the female zombie comes up and he does the same thing to her. And it literally like Scooby Doo. I mean, he is not in control of his body. He's just screaming and swinging a shovel around.
And it's not just a scream, it's the highest pitched scream of the littlest girl you could think of.
Yes. They open a clear story window and he and Curtis climb out and start running. The whole time they've been doing this, Atticus Finch, it turns out, has been communicating with a group of Satanists in town who want him to get the book. And so he has to be paying attention to what Todd and his friends are doing. So he's outside the house with binoculars, seeing what Todd and Curtis are doing, and they come running out and run into him and knock him over, and they start to kick him on the ground. And all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, that's our guidance counselor," and they like leave, and then Todd comes back one more time to give him an extra kick, and then runs off. It turns out the girl found the book of pure evil after catching some grief from her parents and wished that her favorite musicians um, could be her parents instead. The downside is her favorite musicians were goth musicians who tried to stay awake for 36 hours or something like that, and they died from lack of sleep. So they come back as zombies and eat her parents.
And they're the Bram Stoker experience.
Yes, the Bram Stoker experience, right? Um, so they were going to eat her too, but she promises to bring them people to eat. And
And so, she this again. Okay, so they let her go to school every single day, and she just comes home and brings more people. You
yeah,
never thought of just leaving?
just yeah. Sorry, I can't stay.
That wouldn't help the plot, so we couldn't do that.
Because Curtis and Todd got away, they punish her by cutting off her finger and eating it. So she explains this to everybody, and the zombies find the book of pure evil, and they the female zombies figured out a way to use a spell to come back, and they could get everything they wanted and go on with their band. The male zombie has figured out that, oh hey, you know what? It's parent teacher night at the high school. Let's just go and eat everybody because they're always hungry. So they show up at the high school. There's this awesome scene where the parents are all in a room. The gym teacher's there hating on the parents, and Atticus is getting ready to address the parents, and he's going over his speech. Your kids are horrible. They're terrible. Um, And the group of 4 plus the goth girl are all running around the halls getting ready to fight these zombies. The zombies show up and eat the goth girl. Victim number 1 who has used the book and something really bad has happened.
Right.
So they eat her. The gang attacks the zombies. It looks like the zombies are going to take them out because they rush them from both sides and the zombies easily handle them. And then the female zombie talks about wanting to get back into music, and the male zombie's like, I don't want to have to go back to work. And they start arguing, and Jenny grabs a fire axe and beheads them both.
Oink. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not, you don't get a lot of complicated plots in the demise of whatever baddie of the week you got. They're
Right.
pretty straightforward demises.
The book flies away down a hall, of
boom.
course.
Yeah.
End of episode. The next episode is the first of the ones that's going to offend people. It's called Gay Day, and it opens up with apparently Crawley High's only gay student being bullied by the football team. And they decide they're going to lock him in a closet. They filled his locker full of fruit, and he opens it up, and all the fruit falls out. And they're like, "What kind of fruit are you, fruit?" And they're like making the worst analogies possible, and not like, I don't mean worst like, oh my gosh, that's so rude. Like worst like they make no sense. Like,
Right.
what are you? Are you a pomegranate? What does that even mean? I don't
Right.
understand. So when the bullies can't actually make a coherent thought, they pick him up and lock him in a closet.
And this
Wow.
is the first of several episodes, again, where they take a issue in high school, a high school level issue, and they put it over the top and make everybody stereotypes. There's a couple episodes that kind of follow that. They take this one little high school issue, but it's also a little bit like comedy where they're pointing out problems in society by blowing it up over the top and setting it in a high school. Because there's a couple of episodes where it's like, yeah, this is a problem we've had in our society in today's world. And this is, the high school way of thinking and dealing about it, essentially.
Yes, if you are a young person and deciding to watch this, bear in mind this is satire. So when you're watching it, they're not making fun of the homosexual student. They're making fun of the ridiculous situation that these people have to go through every day. This is a daily occurrence to them, and how stupid is that?
And they do it in the similar way for a couple episodes. He gets his wish through the Book of Pure Evil, and instead of him being bigger, stronger, or being straight or something like that, it changes it, and it affects everybody the opposite way, essentially.
Yes. He finds the Book of Pure Evil and wants everyone to feel what it's like to be him, and so it makes the entire male population of Crawley High gay, and it makes him straight.
Right.
And there's some problems throughout the episode that arise from this, like Todd and Curtis are now gay, and Todd's really bummed out about that. And at first he denies that he's gay, and then Jenny just lifts up her top and shows him her breasts, and it just doesn't do anything for him, and he realizes that now he's gay, and how much does that suck?
Curtis is great in this. He's just sitting there going, "Your eyes sparkle," and
yes,
he's like so
when you're
funny.
thinking, like green flashes when you're thinking.
Yeah,
and because Curtis is basically in love with Todd anyways.
Oh yeah. Even though we find out what happened to Curtis later in the series, he's still.
Yeah, that's some dedication right there. You and I would not have this relationship.
Probably not.
Yeah. So the other problem is that all the guys are straight, and so now none of the cheerleaders, who apparently are just ridiculously horny whores, are completely in a bloodlust over the fact that none of the boys want them anymore.
Yeah. Oh my God, the football team didn't want their morning blowjobs.
Yes.
Wait a minute, what? I mean, again, it's so high school.
And that is a legitimate quote from the show. That's not
Yes,
Steve just improving.
that actually is.
Um, so they go on a hunt for the poor gay student because they're convinced it was him who was responsible for this. Um,
It's
meanwhile,
it's interesting too because everything in their lives gets viewed as, oh, it's got to be the book, and it actually is. But I mean, it's like that's immediate. Oh, this must be the book.
yeah. Um, and so the Scooby Gang track down the gay student, and they're trying to protect him because all of the girls want to kill him because he made all of the guys gay, and all the guys want to kill him because he's straight. So it really kind of hammers home the point. It doesn't matter what your orientation is; it's that you're different.
Right.
It makes no difference at all. It's just that you're different. So they take him to uh, Jimmy's office and lock the door, and they're hiding out down there. Um, and Jimmy's down there looking at some gay porn mag, and he's like, "Oh, well, that's why I'm looking at this." And the girls point out that it only seems to have affected the students, and Jimmy's like, "Oh, you never saw this."
Yeah. Again, perfect Jason Mewes. It's hilarious.
Yeah. In the end, the boy decides he's just going to go out and confront this, and so he goes up while the crowd's beating on the door, and he like comes out the door, and he makes this very impassioned speech about, he didn't mean to screw with everybody. He's been through this all the time, and why can't we just, you've experienced what he's experienced, and let's all get along. And the crowd's having none of it, and they rip him limb from limb.
They draw and quarter him.
Yes. And then the Book of Pure Evil flies away, and everyone's back to what they were before. Let's move on to episode 5.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, well, okay, I guess we don't have to worry about that anymore, and they just move on.
Yep. Episode 5 is called Monster Fat. Um, and
Wait, real quick on that gay episode too, with the whole cult thing. They say you can identify the one by the mark on his penis, and so the guidance counselor is trying to get Todd to show him his penis. And again, it points out, this guy is like so wrong in everything, and it's kind of
yeah,
how the students view the teachers.
yeah. Well, it's time for your mandatory strip search. You can't do that. I certainly can. I
Right.
don't think you can. All right, good job. This was the inappropriate questions test, and you passed.
Right.
Yeah,
The Atticus is just hilarious because he can't fit in anywhere.
yeah. And this is one of those episodes where, even if you took all the swear words out, I how is the rest of this content appropriate for a younger audience?
Yeah.
It's not. So, but
No. Well,
the,
Canadians have different viewpoints than
it's
Americans
true.
on some
It's
of
true.
this. So
The next episode's called Monster Fat. And if you haven't guessed, we're making fun of fat people in this one. It opens with a shot of Jim. Everyone is doing a vault over a big wooden thing. There's this, of course, Todd and Curtis are just sitting, leaning back against the wall, talking about Jenny. And Jenny and Hannah are standing in line, and they're talking about the book. That's pretty much how the whole dynamic goes. Curtis and Todd talk about the girls, and the girls talk about actually getting something done.
right.
And there's this very large girl standing behind them, and she keeps trying to edge her way further and further back in the line. And we've pointed out how horrible the gym teacher is. So she sees the girl trying to get further and further back, just calls her out and wants her to do this vault. So she runs up and gets to the springboard, jumps on the springboard, which of course just snaps, and then she slams into the vault and knocks the vault over. Um, and
Which, as we've said with some of the other stuff, it kind of points out how stupid gym class really can be. I mean, what are you really getting out of gym class to spring off that board off the horse? And why do you have to do that? And, gym class, if you really look back on it, there's almost no point to it. there was so many things wrong with our gym class that I'm assuming was kind of universal across the country.
My son has a written test in gym class today over the rules and positions in baseball.
Wow. Okay.
So,
I see. I remember playing. That's how you broke your leg playing baseball in gym.
yeah,
Uh, and I remember if you couldn't hit the ball or you couldn't field the ball because they were doing that in gym, you would think the goal would be to work with those kids to learn how to hit the ball. No, our gym class was, well, you can't hit, you can't catch, run laps. And I always asked, how the heck is that helping you get better?
yeah. It's a flaw in the system, I suppose. Um,
Pointed out by this ridiculous show.
yes, yeah. So the girl goes into the shower. Oh, she finds the Book of Pure Evil, of course.
Of course.
Casts the spell.
The book kind of hunts these people down. It
Yes,
finds them and calls to them because it sparks and opens up to just the right spell.
yes. And to this, at this point, at 5 episodes in, the Scooby Gang hasn't figured this out yet. They
Right.
know when something's going on based on what's going on, where they can find the book because they know who has it, but they
Right.
can't predict it yet. But they get there.
Yeah.
Um, so this girl casts a spell. She takes a shower and all of her fat washes off of her, basically. Which sounds great, miracle thing, except the fat like becomes this entity of its own, this monster that lurks in the sewers, and whoever it touches becomes fat.
Right. And really thinking about that, what good is trying to take over this high school for the book? I mean, it keeps doing all these things that are only affecting these high school students.
Yeah.
So, what good is that, really?
Well, and the other thing, if you're looking at this, the only people who get fat in this show are the girls in the school. It
Right.
only affects the girls.
And they point out the cheerleaders mostly.
Yeah, it's like, so boys don't have body issues? Is that what? But again, we're reading way too much into this. It's just a stupid show. Um, but Jenny ends up becoming fat, and Todd acts very oddly around her now that she's fat, and she's convinced it's because she's fat. And Curtis informs her it's not that; it's that uh, he and Todd at one point in time found a videotape of Curtis's parents having sex, and they're very large people, and it traumatized Todd.
And
Um,
Curtis in the flashback is sitting there eating popcorn watching it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Todd has like had a dream about Jenny visiting him at night, and she's all dressed and sexy. And then like now that she's fat, he has a dream, and she shows up and she's fat. And she like sits on him, and she's gonna eat his face off. So he apparently has some sort of bizarre phobia. He tries to get around it. He even says that he'll kiss her, and he can't bring himself to do it. This whole time, Hannah has been working on a formula to undo the fatness. And of course, the first time she tries it on a giant fat rat that they have, the rat just explodes, so it's not ready yet. Um, but they end up in the cafeteria. All of the girls are now fat. Curtis has a side hustle selling moo to everybody in the school hallway. Um, and all of the girls are hating on this girl who's thin. And all the guys are loving on this girl who's thin. They're in the cafeteria. The giant fat monster shows up, and like everyone's taking cover. And the girl again decides to sacrifice herself. She attacks the fat monster, and knocks it into a fryer. Which that's a big ass fryer. You know what I mean? It fits this giant monster of fat and a
Yeah,
student, like her shoes
right.
sticking out of it at the end. And you're like, yay, okay, end of the episode. But no, the fat monster comes out of the fat. Um, and it's like terrorizing the cafeteria. And Hannah comes up and she has made this pill that if you give it to the fat monster, it will destroy the fat.
Which
And so,
again talks to about society. Oh, just take this pill and get rid of
That's
your
right.
fat. I
Fat
mean,
burns while you sleep.
yeah,
Um, so Todd can't find a mouth on it, so they decide it's got to go. It does have an ass, so it's got to go up its ass. So he borrows Curtis's arm and puts the pill in Curtis's arm's hand and stuffs it up the monster's ass, and the monster, of course, dies. Funny jokes about Curtis's arm being disgusting and stinky. Book flies away. End of episode 5.
and I got to point out that Todd and Curtis, which they're supposed to be these big stoners, I think that wasn't brought out quite as much throughout the show as maybe it could have been. But that's my thing. But their reactions all the time when this stuff shows up is definitely that type. Whoa, dude!
Yeah.
They're always just kind of like surprised and whoa, the book's doing something weird and evil.
Yeah.
So it is humorous in that regard.
Very stereotypical that anybody who smokes marijuana is like that all the time, even when they're
Yeah.
not high.
Okay. So we've been on an hour. We've done about half. Why don't we hit the high points so we don't bore everybody? And if they really, really want to see the last episodes, hit some of because we get a little bit of the same type of thing, but then we get some story arc for the whole
We
season.
do overarching story arc. The next episode was Invasion of the Stupid Snatchers, where they're making fun of stupid people.
Yeah. And this is where everybody does smoke weed. That's what gets them stupid is this smoke from the Book of Pure Evil.
Yes, and again the twist where the dumbest kid in school wishes that he was the smartest kid in school. So instead of making him smarter, it makes everyone else stupid. And this one actually affects the staff because it happens to Atticus, who actually gets his hands on the book but doesn't know what to do with it because he's so stoned. Terrible twin turf tussle starred two twins, and there's an incestuous relationship between them both. The twins, Carissa and Katie Strain, were in a movie called Twinsanity, which makes sense, but they were also in the remake of Carrie.
Oh, cool. Wow.
Which I found interesting.
And that episode cracked me up because Curtis becomes a love doctor, and he gives Hannah advice on how to win Todd over, and she is so over the top, and it so doesn't fit her personality at all. It's hilarious.
Yes, and while that's happening, Jenny is seduced by one of the twins, one of the incestuous lesbian twins, and so she's like experimenting, and it's funny because Atticus gives her a lesbian gift basket.
Yes, I mean, how wrong can you be?
Yes, and right about this point, the Satanists have decided that Curtis needs to be in with the gang, so he has now insinuated himself into their ranks. So now it's not a gang of 4, it's a gang of 5, 4 students and 1 double agent adult.
And he's so happy because he's part of a gang.
He's part of something, yes. The next episode is called Cockfight, and it deals with the bully who you see throughout the series, played by Kyle Nobles, who is in The Curse of Chucky.
Oh, cool.
And in it, they're basically making fun of somebody, and Todd does this whole, like, almost like risky business slide across the hallway because the bullies are making fun of somebody, and he grabs his pants and pantses him and has Curtis take a picture, and apparently the bully has a very small penis.
Which is what he was teasing all these other people about, essentially.
Yes. And so they text this out to everybody in the school. Now, this show's from like 2010 or something like that, so they're dealing with flip phones, not like fancy stuff. The guy uses the Book of Pure Evil and ends up with a giant monster penis that turns people to stone. So Curtis has
basically Medusa.
Yes, Curtis has been turned to stone, clutching the Book of Pure Evil. And so in an effort for Todd to be able to battle this thing, they've put glasses on him so it's only a thermal image and given him a paper cutter lever to just cut it off with. You actually see Atticus's true side here because while they're fighting the evil penis, he has taken the stone body of Curtis and like tried to chisel his arm off. He's trying to get his arms off of the book so he can take the book to his.
He almost throws Curtis over a ledge just to shatter him to get the book.
Yeah.
And it's really evident that Atticus really is not the best cultist. He's really just trying to win his daddy's approval. I mean,
Yes.
That's really what it is.
We do find out that the leader of the Satanists is his father, who treats him horribly.
Right.
In the end, they end up cutting off the bully's penis, but he survives. So
Yes.
He's got that
It's a
going
bonus
for him.
compared to some.
The next episode is the Big Bad Baby. You have a group of high school girls who are actively pregnant. They've like formed a club. They're excited about being pregnant. One of them was faking it, and they find out. And so she uses the book, has a baby, which turns out to be like 7 foot tall, and it basically crushes people to death. It imprints itself on Todd, and so Todd actually acts fatherly to it. But in the end, the baby crushes mom to death, and I don't know what happens to the baby. Oh, the Satanists take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
The
in one of the other episodes, also, the astronomy/astrology teacher even says, how many of you are Capricorns? Well, statistics say by the end of the year, half of you are going to be pregnant.
Yes, that was this episode. The 10th episode was the ghost of Chet Sukowsk.
Yeah.
Um,
Sukowski.
yes, and the guy who's the basketball player in this this basketball player uses the book because he sucks and his dad's the coach, and his dad just only cares about basketball. He belittles his kid all the time. He uses the
Which
book to
again
become
points out a lot of
yes.
coaches.
He uses the book to become a better basketball player, but instead of just making him better, he ends up possessed by the ghost of a 50s basketball player who was an all-star. The actor is named Ves Saranga, and he was in The Handmaid's Tale and Orphan
Oh,
Black. So he's
okay.
gone on to bigger and better things as well. This episode was it this episode where she does the? No, I think that's Checkmate. Because Jenny in this episode becomes possessed by the ghost of Chet's girlfriend, and Chet is going to have this chickie race with Todd, and he's going to drive off the edge of a cliff and die because that's what happened to the actual Chet Sukowski. So they all get together in Atticus's van. Jimmy hooks up some nitrous thing to it so it can actually keep up with his muscle car. It really is Scooby-Doo because
Yeah.
they're in the van chasing after this ghost. They manage to rescue Jenny, and the guy drives off a cliff and dies. The book gets away. End of
It
episode
would have
10.
been great for a season 2 is have like a Mulder and Scully type of FBI agent snooping around. That would have been great. Of course, it could happen. I haven't seen season 2, so
Yeah, any responsible parents, responsible adults would be nice. Episode 11 is called The Phantom of Crawley High. I enjoyed this one. It's a musical. And we learn a lot about Atticus's backstory. He's always hinted to this whole thing about a wolf and his
yeah,
first sexual experience.
leave it in the
So
past.
yeah, in the past, leave it in the past, Atticus. So for some reason, the guidance counselor has been tasked with doing a school musical.
Which
And
again, that how many times has that happened in high school? I mean, look at our Earth science teacher became the physics teacher. I mean, oh well, we need it. You do it.
yeah, the the drama club girl in this school can't sing. So she uses the book so she could sing. She has an amazing voice, but her tongue just drops out.
Just plop.
Yes. So she
Which
puts,
I'm like, wait a second. The book is like harming the person that it took control of, and it does that all, but it like gave her this great voice, but then pops her tongue out so she can't sing. I was
Yes.
like, okay, move on. We'll just let it go.
She wears a mask and becomes this Phantom of the Opera
Right, because no
character.
tongue, you should wear a mask.
Yes. And she's using poison darts to try and take Jenny out, who is the lead now, and Todd is the lead male figure. Todd's excited because he gets to kiss Jenny in this one part, and like she's put the whole thing off. They couldn't find a musical they like, so Atticus writes a musical about the child of Satanists who decides to rebel against his parents with a happy ending. Um, and so that's what the musical is. The side story is Curtis falls in love with the Phantom of Crawley High
Because they're both freaks.
because they're both freaks. Because she's missing a tongue, he's missing an arm. They are also at one point in time snooping around Atticus's office. I think this is the episode. He comes in, and Curtis and Hannah are the ones who are doing it. They hide in his closet, and he walks over to the closet, and Curtis is like, "Kiss me," and so he kisses her. As Atticus opens the closet door and sees them, and they're kissing, and he's like, "Okay, carry on," and then closes the
Yeah,
closet door and leaves. From then on, Hannah now has a thing for Curtis.
right.
But
My other, oh, sorry, go ahead. Right. My favorite line is the Phantom keeps killing all the leads off, all the other girls. They die shaking. It's kind of funny. But then there's my favorite line is, oh, did you freeze? Oh, is that me or you? Guess we'll have to edit this. You there? Was that me
yeah,
or you?
I have no idea.
Okay. So anyway, my favorite line is one of the girls gets killed. She's on the stage, and uh, Atticus says something like, "Well, despite the large mortality rate of this show, it's coming along great."
Yeah, he's thrilled by it. In the end, the Phantom goes to blow a dart that's going to kill Jenny, and Curtis throws his hand out there and stops the dart. And then he's like, "Oh, I was going to use my fake hand," and then he collapses. Um, so Hannah actually goes, and there's this really hilarious thing where she's trying to ask what kind of poison the girl used, and the girl doesn't have a tongue, so she's running through all these lists of poisons. She finds out what it is. She pulls out a mortar and pestle. She makes the antidote for it right there and saves Curtis's life.
Yeah, just happens to
um
have all that.
yes. um the next episode is 12. It is called Checkmate, and in it there is a chess tournament between Hannah and this guy played by Max Toplin, who is in Suits and also from Carrie. Um, and he beats her, and so she's convinced this guy has the Book of Pure Evil.
Yeah, it's hilarious. She wins, turns right around. He has the book. Just
Yeah. He also has the ability to hypnotize people, and so he hypnotizes Curtis and Hannah into trying to capture Todd because he can see that Todd is going to be this evil entity that takes over the world. Um, Jenny, in the meantime, finds a time capsule, and in it is a video which explains that the entire town was set up by Satanists who were tired of being persecuted by other people. It's like a sales pitch for the
yeah,
town. And Atticus's dad is like the head of the Satanists, and Atticus is a baby in the video. And Atticus's dad is played in the
and,
video
and
by
he's so
Atticus.
great. That baby doesn't look a thing like me.
Yeah. um Todd is actually given visions of what he's going to be, and there's like earthquakes, atomic bombs going off, and there's giant Todd laughing maniacally over top of the entire school, and flames everywhere. It's all done in red. um in the end, they try and capture Todd, and they can't, so they capture Jenny instead. and it's a trap to lure Todd. Todd shows up, and he's finally like he has to give up to save Jenny, so he does, and the geek tries to use his telepathy powers on Todd, and it just doesn't work because Todd is impervious to it.
Because he's a stoner that can't keep a thought long enough.
Yes, and in the end, the guy's head explodes. The kids now don't trust Atticus Finch anymore, and the book gets away. The last episode in the season is called A Farewell to Curtis's Arm. And this one was actually directed by Craig David Wallace. And in it, um, Atticus ends up with the book. Um, just, we'll deal with Atticus right off the bat. Atticus ends up with the book. He delivers it to the old folks' home.
Uh-oh.
And then he's facing his father in his wheelchair, which you look at the handles of his wheelchair and they're swords. I mean, it's obvious. It's a very heavy metal kind of wheelchair. Atticus pulls out 2 daggers and beheads his father and takes his place as the head of the Satanists now, and he's got the Book of Pure Evil. That is Atticus's arc in this episode. The other arc, you have Jenny, who goes to the nursing home to seek out the Satanists. While she's there, she finds her father there in a wheelchair with an IV hooked up to him in a coma state. She's trying to get him out. Some nice old lady in the hallway is talking to her, and she's like, no, I've got to get out of here. And then it turns out every member of the old folks home are Satanists, and they capture Jenny, and that's her arc.
Yeah.
Then you have Todd and Curtis. Todd goes to Jimmy and he's like, I've seen that I'm going to be this horrible thing. And Jimmy's like, dude, don't let fate dictate to you. Be your own man. And so Todd's like, that's stupid. And so he goes to the bros, and the bros are like, it's time for us to take a trip to shop class. So they go to shop class, where Todd makes, first time ever, this amazing sword. And at some point in time, he's like, wow, really handy. There was this whole forge in this place. Then you have Curtis, who uses the book because he loses his arm. He loses his fake arm, and he gets a demon arm. And the demon arm is slowly taking Curtis over. So Curtis ends up confronting Todd, and it turns out Curtis lost his arm due to an accident in shop class with Todd, where Todd accidentally cut off Curtis's arm.
Right.
And nobody remembered that. That was just, everybody had forgotten about that. In the end, Todd cuts off Curtis's demon arm, and he's about to skewer him through, and the 3 bros are like, yeah, do it. And then Todd's like, I'm not gonna do it. And they like look up, and Jimmy's hanging out from a window above him, flipping him off, because the Oracle wins this round, not the Furies.
Right.
And that's where the season kind of ends, with Jenny's captured. Todd has come to like this realization, this elevation where he has accepted his position, his role.
And he's upset about this. And he's talking to Curtis about it. Curtis is like, but dude, this has been the best school year ever.
Yeah. Curtis has had a great time this year, despite all the horrible things that have happened. Hannah is still madly in love with Curtis. So when I finished watching this after getting it out of, the library, I was like, oh, now I got to see season 2. So I put it on hold. It came in. I watched season 2. Again, season 2 ends with the same kind of cliffhanger because they expected a season 3, never got it. So I'm looking forward to see the animated version.
Yeah. I'll have to definitely get season 2 and watch it. I would say though, I would not necessarily, for a lot of people, recommend this as a binge show. Just because there's a lot of similarities between them, and it could get to be a bit of a drag.
Yeah, the stupidity of the show that is so enjoyable is enjoyable in small doses.
Yeah.
So if you try and sit down and watch the entire 13 episodes through, all the way through, you're like, yeah, okay.
Right.
By the time you get to episode 10, you're just like, yeah, I can't really deal with it. So you got to take some breaks. You got to pace yourself with this.
Yeah. This one definitely recommend that.
Yeah.
So, and there we go. There's Todd and the Book of Pure Evil season 1 for the end of our season 1.
That's right, for the end of our season 1, and I don't really know that we need to define how the theme of Friends works with this series, this title, because the whole thing is about friendship. So
Very true. It's Buffy meets the Scooby Gang,
yep,
written by 12-year-olds.
yes, absolutely. So yeah, of all of the stuff that we've reviewed, there's a few titles that I'd be like, yeah, you know what, this movie isn't for everybody. Martyrs is not for everybody.
No.
The Loved Ones is not for everybody. This show isn't gonna trouble anybody. So you can start watching it and you can be like, no, this is too stupid for me, and turn it off and walk away, and it's not a big deal. So
Right.
everybody could give this a try.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it does have a few things at the episodes, but again, it's satire humor. Take it
yeah,
as that. They're not trying to make a political statement, except as far as you would make it through satire humor.
yeah. So yeah, it's a great series. This has been a really fun season. Thanks for talking me into it.
Yeah. Hey, and
Um,
we just a little cliffhanger of our own. We're watching some of the American remakes of some of this season's movies, and we're going to do a bonus episode just covering those briefly, how they're different than the ones we watched for the season. And we've already gathered a list of movies to watch for season 2, so we want to keep going.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
hope some people enjoy this.
Yeah, you know what? I was just having this conversation with somebody recently. If you don't enjoy it, I'm having a good time, so we'll
Yeah.
just keep doing them anyway. So
Yeah, we get to watch movies and talk about them. So
yeah,
what better thing can you be doing, right?
absolutely.
And better yet, it's now fall, so we're coming to Halloween, and we love watching movies. The last couple of years we've had a marathon where we get together and watch several movies throughout an
Get
evening,
all the kids together, we'll have an whole evening watching horror movies.
and eating junk food. So
Yes, lots
sounds
of
like
junk
it
food.
could be an episode of Todd and the Book of Pure Evil.
Yes, yes. Nobody opened any skin-bound tomes before.
Yeah, we've said that since Evil Dead, and it appears not to have gotten through
Yeah.
to some people.
So people, if you find a skin-wrapped book, don't read it out loud.
Right.
It's just a bad idea.
It is, because you get these, funny movies and TV shows that.
Yeah. Bad things happen to you.
Yeah.
But everyone else is vaguely amused, so.
Yeah, extremely amused, in fact. So, all right, man. It's been
Awesome.
a good one. So, everybody look for the bonus episode in season 2.
Awesome. We'll see you guys later.
The creature slips from perception. Pay attention. It will rise again.